Welcome back to SoberKart. If you want to win more races in Mario Kart World without grinding the hardest world record strats, you're in the right place because today I'm going to break down a handful of shortcuts and routes that might look flashy at first, but are actually some of the easier ones to get down consistently. These are the cuts that every player should aim to learn early because they'll save you real time online without requiring frame perfect execution. I'll show you when to use some mushrooms for the biggest payoffs, some lesser known alternate routes, and the kind of optimizations that will instantly give you an edge in your next race. Let's jump in. Starting with the ending Rainbow Road cut, as hard as this may look, it is very forgiving after a few tries. This will save you so much time that even if you use 3 mushrooms around the normal path, it is still faster. The key to this one is ensuring you don't fly too low or else Lakitu will pick you up, and right trick onto the wall at the longest part of that wall. And make sure to trick off the top and aim for the final pole. Even if you trick off the wall too early and still clip the pole at the lower level, but don't make it over the gap, the respawn will still save you time. Just remember not to fly too low. This can be done by just jumping off the edge as well, then tricking back to the wall, but is much more technical and the time save isn't much different. And then for the charge jump mushroom cut on Starview Peak, this one is so important because of how wide the entire water section is. Not only is driving on the water much slower, but you can shave off the widest corner of the track and drive on this little sliver that is counted on road. So you will be driving much faster than if you were to go wide in the water. The shroom and charge jump is actually easier than staying on the little road, believe it or not, so it's worth it every time you have a mushroom. Even if you don't have a mushroom for the jump, you should still aim to drive on this road and leave the final boost ramp and rings alone, as they are traps, assuming you aren't surrounded by green shells, of course. Again, spend a bit of time practicing driving on this little road, as you will get bumped by the rail, but even if this happens, you are still saving a lot of time. On to what I still call Koopa Beach 2. The main cut to learn on this is really easy, and you should save a shroom for this all 5 laps if possible. Releasing your charge jump as you shroom through the grass and jump towards the left side of these boxes and clip the wall. Now, there are a few angles you can take this, and each one is worth it in specific scenario. Getting a super mini turbo and then hopping to realign and getting one more mini turbo before you charge jump is the best time save, but sometimes you may still want to get an item, and that makes complete sense to come at it from a different angle, which may not be as optimal, but will still save you more time than trimming through any other section of the grass on this circle of the track. About 3 seconds, that is. Now, what if you only have a single shroom at the end of Choco Mountain? If you charge jump off this jump, then air trick onto the wall, you can reach this platform easily every single time, and then trick off and use your single shroom to cut off the entire section of mud off-road. Not many people even know about this, and usually will use a golden shroom or 3 shrooms to get through here, and if you have that, then don't go for this. But it is worth knowing in case you only have that single shroom, and never take the outside path, because if you compare using a shroom in each way, you will save over 4 seconds by taking the route that I'm showing here. Now, we are going to get a bit more technical for Mumu Meadows, but please bear with me as these are much easier than it looks. The most important way to use a mushroom is by charge jumping as you shroom and aim through the right side of this tree, followed by another charge jump off this ramp and tricking off this cow to shave off this entire section shroomless, and then doing another charge jump shroom onto the final wall to take you into the finish line. There are multiple variants of all of these and can actually take all 3 of these cuts completely shroomless, but the first and last one are highly technical, so we won't be going over that in today's video. Overall, you need to practice all of these cuts and make sure to use your shrooms as wisely as possible on this track. Just by using 2 shrooms through these 3 cuts, you can save well over 5 seconds each lap, even if you don't optimize it perfectly. Now, obviously, if you have 3 shrooms, don't bother with the shroomless variant of the second cut, as using a shroom here is still faster, but you aren't always presented with that option. If you only learn one of these 3 cuts today, you need to know the first one. Trust me, it really is not that hard if you jump off the right spot, and if you do learn it, the other 2 are even easier, so just learn all 3. Now, there is obviously another huge shortcut at the beginning of this track, but that's really only viable in time trials, as the fence just breaks it apart and is highly technical, but at least this way you can still bounce off of a cow. On to the hardest track that we're going to cover in this video is now Salty Speedway. Learning this jump onto the waterfall and tricking up to the skinny path and tricking onto this rail to avoid the boxes is kind of technical, but there is more to learn here because if you make it, you can jump onto this rail, right trick at the second coin, hit the left side of the pole as you toggle to the left, and then air trick multiple times to jump over this entire corner. The second part of this cut is more difficult than the first, and if you struggle with that, there is another option. After you get the first cut, you can charge jump onto the left wall and right up to this rail to get to the glider section, which is faster than going the right path, believe it or not. This is not too much slower than the first version, and not only can get you 3 coins, but can put you in the glider during the most common shock spot of this entire track, which will not cancel your momentum if you are in the air. Lastly, if you fail the initial cut, you can still use a super mini turbo and jump off these stairs to hit that same pole and still cut off the entire corner. I personally love to go up the glider path because the less time I can spend on the water, the better. As difficult as these cuts are, doing the variants and learning them properly can save you about 3 seconds each lap, which is really important because these are all shroomless. This makes this one of the most front-running tracks in the entire game, and we'll save it for another video, but you can actually do the box jump at the end shroomless as well. Now, the next one saves the least amount of time within this video, but I think it's worth mentioning due to the limited amount of time savers on Toad's Factory. Other than always trying to be on the green conveyor belts, charging a jump to this rail and instantly right tricking and then tricking off again can save about a second when done correctly. And now on to the flashy Great Question Block Ruins cut that everyone has seen. Even though the shroom cut at the beginning of this track is more important as far as time savers go, this one is also important because it is shroomless. There are a variety of ways to take this cut, and with some practice is actually pretty easy. The hardest thing about this shortcut is not panicking while you're in the air and making sure not to clip the cloud. It is always best to hit the left side of the first ring before getting onto the wall, as this won't bring the cloud into play. Whether you want to go the right fastest route or this left path and get the drift boost or charge jump method to get into it, the charge jump is a little bit slower because the airtime you get, but either way will work, and if you need to until you practice it correctly, go ahead and do the charge jump. Even if you want to get an item, you can still save time by not hitting the clouds and jumping off this wall, landing before the middle of the rocks, and still jumping off the cliff. And you can also get a double item box if you need it. I'd advise learning this part first to build the confidence and timing on the wall, and if you end up having extra shrooms on the last lap, there's this hidden path as well that, albeit is just as fast as the optimized version of this cut and burns a mushroom, it is viable due to the momentum in the event of a shock happening here, and nailing this down, you can learn the most difficult version of this by clipping the last ring, using the box to cut off the last patch of grass completely, shroomless. This version is the most difficult though to learn, so do not start with this. On Wario Shipyard, this charge jump tree bounce cut at the beginning of the lap is significantly faster than driving around the water. The fastest way to take this cut is by hitting higher on the tree, into the wall right before the cliff, jumping off the wall, waiting a second, and then constant doing right air tricks to get around the wall. If you trick too late off the wall, don't hit high enough on the tree, or begin your air tricks too early, you will clip this cliff and potentially miss your landing into the boost ramp in the middle of the water. Due to how many people go for this, especially on lap 1, it is still worth noting that just hitting low on the tree and wall riding the cliff until you detach and going for the left boost ramps is still faster than driving around the water, albeit not as optimized as you'd like to shoot for laps 2 and 3 when you have a bit more space from the pack though. And the final track that we will cover in this video will be a series of cuts that are kind of hard, but really easy to execute if you understand the timing, and are by far the largest time savers out of anything that we have covered in today's video when executed all together. DK Pass has become one of the biggest frontrunner tracks in the entire game due to how many shroomless cuts are on this track. Practically the entire lap is a shortcut if you know how to execute it. Believe it or not, the second part of these cuts, where you trick from tree to wall to tree, is easier than the first wall ride you just saw, and the timing is pretty forgiving. The number one thing to remember here is when jumping off the rail, you want to jump off before the edge to land to the middle height of the wall, and jump back off the wall as it starts to bow back out. If you do this correctly and hold your toggle to the left as you hit the first tree, you should have no problem repeating this every lap. And you can even do this while still getting an item box, but it is a bit less consistent and you will need to hit the first tree before getting onto the wall. So practice that. For the first part of this cut, it is the most important to note that the best way is to aim for the middle of the chain link fence. Be sure not to come head on into it, as if you are not angled properly, you will just bounce off the wall instead of riding up. And if you are angled too much or hit the fence too far to the right, you won't get the right amount of height you need to jump over the rail, and that will make it very slow. If you hit the second part of this correctly, your landing speed should carry you halfway through the snowy off-road and is faster to start a drift to get you out of it. Overall, even if you were to drive this track optimally with the pole bounce at the beginning and compare it to the strategies that I just covered, it should be fairly obvious that these are must-learn shortcuts for this track. And if you can start the race with 3 mushrooms, that is all you really need if you use one of those mushrooms for the final shroom cut each lap. And that is why this is arguably the most front-running track in the entire game. I truly hope this video opened your eyes to some of the shortcuts and routes you should be learning in Mario Kart World. Let me know in the comments if this breakdown helped you, and if you'd like to see a more detailed follow-up with button overlays and a deeper step-by-step look. Of course, there are tons of other shortcuts in this game, some of them much harder, but we'll save those for another video. If you enjoyed this one, please drop a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more Mario Kart World content. And don't forget, we run open lobby streams every Tuesday and Thursday. You're always welcome to race with us there. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's-a go.